Right, buildings. Let's pray. Father, as we look at potential things we could do with this, your house, I pray that your Spirit would be in this meeting as you would be in our normal worship, that we could honour you as we reflect on this place. Amen. Right, quick question first as to why do buildings actually matter? I think back in the 80s when house churches were starting and we're reminded afresh that the church is about people, kind of interesting, within a decade almost all those house churches had acquired premises. Quite simply because we need facilities to serve the purposes of God a lot of the time. And so that's part of the reason that they matter. We can serve God out of this place. But also, and this is a reason that maybe we've sometimes forgotten here in the past, buildings speak to the world. People look at our buildings and they draw conclusions about how much we care about God. And that matters too. So a couple of months after Jane and I arrived, the PCC agreed a bunch of principles that we were going to work on to develop the buildings. And these were they. We will respect the history of the building. We will honour it as a building worthy of God. If you read Haggai chapter 1, the basic summary is, you lot are doing DIY in your own houses and God's place is falling down. That's not acceptable. We will honour this place. We will do the obvious things quickly. We will seek to sensitively develop the building to be fit for our needs now, while building in flexibility so that it remains fit for the future. And we will seek to build and repair to as high an eco standard as we can. So they're the principles the PCC's been working on. Now, the different phases that this will go through, the bits in green are things we've already done. There was a huge maintenance backlog. And Alistair and Dave in particular have worked really hard to be shifting that, and lots of others of you have been part of that as well. And we're getting through that and getting this building properly maintained. We've redone the foyer at the start of lockdown, as you know. We put new storage for children's ministry in the church centre. The car park doesn't flood anymore, and lots of you worked really hard on tidying the frontage and making the grounds look honouring. So those sorts of things have happened. One thing that should have happened, but we are waiting for planning. We've been waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks for the council to give us planning permission for just simply a new notice board. It's all ready to order and everything else, but those new notice boards are almost there. Then the next phase is to make this hall into a church lounge, a welcoming space, to replace the heating, we'll talk about why later, to reorder this worship area so it can fit our needs now, to improve the kitchen facilities, and we need somewhere for people with little babies or with children with special needs to be able to escape to if they need to during the service. So the plan is to turn that vestry into that space. Those three bits, the worship area, the kitchen and the crush area, those all form one project. And then the final bit is to extend this building, to provide small rooms, office space, hall, that kind of replaces both the church centre and what we've got at Dixon Hall, which is just in the wrong place really now. So those are the phases of the project I'm going to talk you through. So we start with the next steps that we expect to happen. The church lounge, you know, we were hoping to do that nearer the start of lockdown, but it became clear that the plans would actually get a bit mixed up with the main reordering, so we deliberately held back a bit so that we didn't do the wrong things there, that it wouldn't match in with here. But we're ready to go on that now and get the final permissions. We want that to be a warm, welcoming meeting place. Post-pandemic, we're going to need... There are no other community buildings in New Bilton. I'm talking with local councillors about that at the moment. And we need a place where we can gather folks as we help them out of the things that have happened over the last year. I say we delayed doing it so we could harmonise it with what will happen in this space. And then the heating replacement, our current system with these Drugasars is simply both inefficient, which is bad for our carbon footprint, but the heaters are obsolete and failing. 3 of the ones in this room are out already. If we lose another one, we're going to struggle to get it warm in the winter, and they can't be mended. They can only be replaced at the cost of about 5,000 each. So it's better to do the whole thing now rather than when it's too late. So looking at the church lounge, that just gives you a quick shot of one of the colour palettes. Fiona's worked on the colours and things for us. And we're going to redecorate it, and we're going to carpet it with a Flotex. It's the sort of carpet with a 25-year guarantee. You can do anything to it, wash it, hoover it, whatever. With a sort of off-white walls and ceiling, so it'll brighten the whole place up. That's the carpet. It's the bits that we've taken the colours on, or Fiona did. You can see the stained glass window there. It's that and the oak that have formed the basis, which is to say they're the beautiful bits of that room, and we'll take the colours off that and build around it. Then, as well as the carpet, we're going to redo the lighting, so it's not sort of garden light shining down on you brightly. There'll be different levels of light we can have when we want it calm and dim, but it'll be a much more pleasantly lit room. There's a coffee bar there that gives us a safe place to be able to serve food and drinks from, when there's children running around especially. There's more storage, so a coffee bar there. The storage, the area at the end behind the blue curtain that at the moment is a platform, and lower down to the same level as the rest of the room. So we've got a big storage room there, with double doors on it, that we can just walk in and out without going up and down steps. And next to it is a boiler room. That's where the boiler plant for the new heating systems will go. And then changing those big wooden chairs, they're lovely to sit on. They are impossible to store because they don't stack. They take up so much of the space, and they're really heavy for people to move around. So we're going to change the chairs out for the sort you'll find in most cathedrals now, actually. And cathedrals don't pad them. They tend to leave them wooden. So they're wire-framed, they're nice and light. Half of them will have arms. So if you're, at the stage in life where you need a bit of a oomph to help you get out the chair, then half of them will have that. And they can all stack 25 high on a simple dolly. So we can clear the room when we want it clear. And the intention is to use the same chairs in this building, in this room. We'll come to that later. So that's the church lounge proposals, okay? I'm going to stop at different points and just say, so you don't have to hold everything in your brains. On the church lounge and what we're planning there, and hopefully that will happen Q3, Q4 this year. Any questions, comments on that? Anything not clear or you want to talk about? Because this can be a discussion, not just a presentation. Does that mean we're happy? Sorry, I missed that. That's right, behind there. So the store will be on the left-hand side and the boiler room will be on the right. Yeah. And there'll be a flat wall across there rather than the curtain that we could put screens on and things like that if we want to. So for things like pit stop, we can project onto it. Will there still be access from behind the Sorry, Marion.
I don't need that.
No, the people on the live stream need it, Marion, if you could.
Will there still be access from the side, the left-hand side of the chancel into that?
Right, that's not decided yet. Probably, but not decided. It does, like you used it today, it does give away a sleeping round, but then with the changes in this room, I think that would be less necessary. It's whether going out through a boiler room is a helpful thing. It might be easier to close that off because we're doing something different with fire escapes. Gordon.
Loos and changing facilities, are they going to be upgraded or anything minor?
Yeah,
on that
that's just the church lounge. I've got loads more to tell you about. We'll come to loos in a minute. Okay? Right, we'll move on from the church lounge then. The heating system, where we've got to so far, we've had design advice from the Darson Advisory Committee. We've got quotes arriving now from 3 firms that are experienced in putting heating in churches. And my hope would be, if we get the permissions, that we can install that in Q4 this year or Q1 22. It is not ideal putting new heating systems in the winter. It tends to get you cheaper quotes, but it's not ideal. But we'll find other ways of heating here or meeting in a school or something, simply because getting the heating in first frees up the rest of the projects. And it just makes the scheduling a lot easier. If we held that till next summer, we'd push the whole thing backwards. The new system is very likely, I can't tell you for definite because we haven't had all the quotes, but it's very likely to be a wet radiator system, just like most of you will have in your houses. with gas boilers in that boiler room. It should reduce our carbon footprint just by going from these Drugasars to the modern gas boilers by about 25%, and it should be very quiet, unlike the screeching monsters we've got at the moment. And the plan is to have low surface temperature radiators in the church lounge there, so children can touch them without getting hurt. So we don't have to put cages and things around them. It makes it a lot neater. We have explored the use of heat pumps instead of boilers. Those of you who know that technology, you can't get the temperature quite high enough yet. And the only way we could heat this building using air source heat pumps would be to dig the whole floors out and do it with underfloor heating. That basically triples the cost and would wipe out a lot of the money we want to use for other things. So the plan at the moment is to go for the wet radiator system, and then if heat pumps continue to develop the way they may well, and sometimes you can just put a little electric boiler to boost the last bit, 6, 7, 8, 10 years down the line, we can replace the gas boilers with air source heat pumps in the same place, and the rest of the infrastructure is already in place. So we just change the heat source. So that's the kind of eco plan on that. We can't at the moment find a better way forward in terms of carbon efficiency. So any questions on the heating? Or comments, or alleluias, or anything else? Okay, so that's probably the first thing you'll see. It'll take about a month, 5 weeks to install. So it will be quite disruptive, as all this stuff will, but we just have to find ways around it. Okay, right, let's move on to the biggest one, the worship area reordering. We need to increase the capacity of this building, but with the same space. There have been plans in the past to kind of turn the church round and go that way. Excuse me. My water. I just don't think the building works that way, personally. That window is the focus of this building, and keeping it facing this way, we can increase the capacity significantly. And if we need more than a couple of hundred, which we can get in going this way, we just go to multiple services, which is, I think, the route for the future anyway. We need this space to be inspiring, that we come in here and we go, wow, God, you're great. And the bits we built the design around are that window, which when you can see it is really lovely. These oak arches, they're beautiful. And if we get the lighting right in here, we've got all these walls to paint on, and the arches. Getting the lighting right will be key, so we've got a professional lighting designer working on that. We need a flexible space. To use it for 2 hours a week, or 3 hours a week for worship, is just not sensible. We need a space that's more flexible than that. The baby and special needs provision we've talked of, and I want us to be respectful of the past as well. This is a living building, but it's got a history, and we need to honour that too. So those are the things we're aiming at. That's the architect's drawing. I'm not going to ponder on that one because I'm going to break it down into bits. But that's the front, the chancel area there, the bit where you're sitting in the nave, and then the bit at the back. So we'll start at the front with the chancel. And the plan is this. This is just an architect's sketch. We'll start with the stage area. So instead of the big tiered stage we've got now, the plan is to take this level here and build it out flat and then step down. So we've got a nice flat stage, we've got all the plugs we need for bands and all that sort of thing within it. Then we've got access onto that. We looked at ways of putting ramps up onto the stage, and they end up being halfway down the church if you get them at the right angle. So the only way to get proper access onto that for people who can't go up steps is to put a little wheelchair lift in the side. So yes, it'll cost more money, but we talked about it in PCC and decided it's just the right thing to do, that everybody should have access to every part of the building. The next step is the vestry. If we're turning the vestry into something else, this is a plan. If you can imagine, these are the steps here where the rood screen is at the moment, and you're looking that way. The idea is to put a wall about here that forms the new reredos, the new back wall. And we get the height right, so it's the same colour as what's behind it. You can hardly see it's there. It kind of fades into the background. And then the two little diagonal side pieces give us doors, and that gives us both a vestry and a music store, about 2/3, 1/3, and a new rear dos to play with. Okay, but you can see, even on the sketch, although it's two-dimensional, we can do that in 3D, that it's not obvious it's there. That new rear dos, we can then do something beautiful with it. Maybe we put banners and the Christus Victor or things like that on it. But what I'd really like to do, if we can afford it, is to put 2 whacking LED screens on it, which means we can change the tone of the building at the flick of a switch. And if we want a very traditional service, we can put candles on it. If we want something more modern, we can put whatever we want in terms of artwork. We can have Picasso, we can have Michelangelo, we can have whatever would help the service, we can put as our rear dos. So that's one of the possibilities, and it's taking church art and saying it's the 21st century. We've got flexibility there. That may or may not happen in phase 1. Then the rood screen here, and there are 3 reasons why we want to see the rood screen removed. The first is that it's just simply a barrier. And if you're trying to lead from behind there, as the group will tell you, because they're the only people we put there at the moment, it's really, really difficult because it's giving you this sort of wall. The second reason is capacity. We've got another 50 people we can put in this part of the building if we can lead from there, which at the moment we can't. So it increases the capacity. But the third, and for me the most important reason, is theological. Rood screens were put in churches in the late medieval era as a statement that priests and people were different and were separated off. The Catholic Church in the Counter-Reformation removed almost all rood screens from all their churches because it said things that even the Catholic Church didn't want to say about priesthood. They came back to some extent in the Anglican Church during the Oxford movement in the Victorian era. But theologically, this just says something that we don't want to say. So for those 3 reasons, we want to see this rood screen removed. Now, there are a number of things we could do with it. The PCC voted on our preference, 15 votes to 1, I think it was to have it removed from site, that there's just nothing sensible to do with it. It is not a remarkable piece of furniture. It probably knocked up by the local chippy in the Victorian times. The problem we've got is Bodley, who built the church, went on to build some famous things, so that gets some people excited. So there is a plan B, which is to move it to the back, and I'll show you that in a minute. But the rood screen will go, so we've got a big open area at the front. New furniture that will just honour the new building. I don't know if it'll be exactly that, but that kind of thing. We want to pick up this oak theme, so a new table, something like that, could fit in. And again, the same sort of chairs as we talked about next door, with some with arms. And then the lighting, I'm going to do the whole lighting design we haven't got yet, but one thing we have agreed is that back wall will be white. And you see how we played a little bit with some cheap LED lights to give some colour? Well, with a proper professional lighting outfit, we can flood that back wall any colour we want. So we can totally change the feel of the building at the flick of a switch just by changing the colour of that back wall when it's painted white. So that's the sort of thing we'll play with the lighting. And then we need an upgraded AV system. So instead of the projectors, we'll have screens, almost certainly one on either side, and then a couple of smaller repeaters halfway down so that everybody can visually see what's on the screens as we go forward. And we'll be able to hear more clearly because we can get the speakers in the right places. Again, probably with the repeaters. So that's the chancel area. I'll run through the nave, the bit you're sitting in, changing the pews out. Well, the rood screen I'll show you first. The plan B, if we're not allowed to remove it totally, is to put it at the back. Where Dave's standing there with his arms outstretched, if you want to look, basically across there. Okay? Probably without the rood cross on top, just the screen itself. Okay? So that's plan B. Then changing the pews for chairs. In this layout, we can get about 190 in on that. If you had a few people at the front, we're getting close to 200. And then there's a new fire exit, which will be pushed through here. Because under current regs, just having those 2 isn't enough, and that doesn't really count as a fire exit. So we just need to push a double door through there. Has the other advantage, we can get some good airflow through the building, because there's nothing up here that opens at all. And then the new AV desk at the back, if the rood screen's there, it'll be back up against it and raised up on a little platform. Now, one of the things I'm concerned about is we don't have proper war memorial in this church. The window at the front was given in memory of those who died in World War I. Some of the pews given in memory of those who died in World War II. But the list of names and things is on a tatty bit of paper behind the organ, and I bet most of you have never seen it. I don't think it's good enough. So the plan is to take some of the wood that was given in memory of people who died in World War II in these pews, and that's just a mock-up, it'll be prettier than that, but make a proper wall plaque that can go on the wall here, and somewhere we can put poppy wreaths and things, and the plaques, there's one on the front here that talks about the window at the front, there's one little one in the pews, and we'll have proper plaques on there to say we will remember them, we've got to focus, come Remembrance Day. So that's a way of handling those memorials. And then there's some other brass plaques that if they have to be, if they're on things that need removing, again, we'll put those on a piece of oak and put them properly on the wall so they're dealt with respectfully. The Stations of the Cross, the moment scattered all around, and you can't really see the flow or the sense of them. The intention there is to put them on the wall. Again, Dave, doing his air hostess bit, pointing at that wall at the back there, okay, that is the side of the vestry. They fit on that, and we can put them there so you can see them all in one place, and they make a little more sense. And then finally, that vestry area, the intention is to have, where the rood cross is now, the one that came from Holy Trinity, is to put a big window there. So that space can be used by children and parents. Visually, you'll be connected with the congregation through that window. We'll have sound piped through. The Holy Trinity cross, which was never original to this church, as you know, St. John's Leamington are desperate to have it. They want to fly it above their rood screen, which is what it was meant for, and they'd really like it. So the intention is to gift it to them so they can use it properly. We'll have sound in there. We have somebody working on lighting that is appropriate for people with special needs, so that room will be a calming place and appropriate furniture. So that's the three bits of this room, really. Any questions on the worship area? That's the big one. Questions, comments? Sue? What about PA sound system? Yeah, that's all being upgraded. The audio-visual system, all part of the upgrade. We've had people in to look at that already, and we got some feels for it. So we will be going certainly to digital desks, new speaker systems, so totally new sound system. Nathan?
What's happening to the organ?
What's happened to the organ?
What will happen to the organ?
Nothing's happening to the organ at all. Thanks. I'll repeat where I can. Thanks, Aaron. Nothing happening to the organ. It will stay where it is and continue to function. The only disadvantage of that organ is you can't tune it to be the same as the band, so you can't play them together. That's the irritation of having a pipe organ, not an electric one. But there's no intention to do anything with it. Any other questions on that? Likes, don't likes? Would rather sit on pews? Whatever you want to say. It's like the annual meeting. Nobody's saying anything. Yeah?
The church we were in previously, we did a similar
Yep.
project, not as ambitious as this one, but we had those chairs and they're fantastic.
Okay.
Take the pews out and never look back.
Jane has just said previous church they were in went for exactly those chairs, and she said they were fantastic. Never looked back, so they loved it. So thank you for that experience. Any other queries? Yeah, I'll come to costs in a minute. Okay, last bit then. Enlarge kitchen and re-sited toilets. Now, you know, at the moment we've got that kitchen area, but it is not to commercial standards. That is a problem. Certainly with things like the night shelter, the council are going to start getting excited. We've got to get that to semi-commercial standards for all kinds of reasons. And it's hard to do in the size it is. So the plan is to say, well, we'll do this properly in one bite. We will take that room back to the size that it was originally when it was a vestry by removing that disabled toilet and re-siting, certainly temporarily until the big extension is built, a a disabled loo and an ordinary loo. The architect reckons they can get 2 in. I think, to be honest, the door probably won't be there, it'll be here. But it'll mean blocking up that corridor, certainly for the next year or 2 before an extension gets built. But it gives us the full size to do the kitchen properly in one go, put a semi-commercial kitchen in there. In case you're wondering, we can't put a hatch through there, the wall's just too thick. So that's the intention on the kitchen and resiting the toilets for now. Get through those. Right, any queries, comments on the kitchen? The only controversial bit there is that, saying blocking that corridor bit off, but it's the only way to give us a big size kitchen, and I don't want to lose the disabled loo. Okay, so next steps. We need to finalise the design on the building work, the AV systems and the lighting. We need to apply for a faculty. For those of you who don't know the systems, the Anglican Church has its own legal system that kind of, for things inside, replaces planning permission. And that's quite a big deal to get that. We hope to apply for that faculty certainly by Q4. We then check the affordability against the funds we've got, and we go. So we're not far off being able to push the button and actually make this happen. Okay? And one final bit, there's an extension that we've had the architect do some work on to say, well, we actually need small rooms, we need this to be more appropriate for various community uses. We need a hall with some kind of servery, not a full kitchen, but a servery, especially for uniformed organisations and youth work. We'd like a prayer room, and offices, and extended toilet facilities. So that will be the right number of toilets for the size building it is, with proper disabled loos and everything else. So we've had them sketch that out. We explored where to put it on this side, where the car park is, and it just didn't fit. So that one got ruled out. So the plan is to put it kind of in that direction from the foyer. I'll show you in a drawing in a minute, where the old school used to be, basically. We've got the initial design and costings, and then we've put that project on hold for now, partly to do some more community discussions with councils and people as to what is needed and who might like to partner with us, and partly so we know exactly what the financing positions will be after we've done the rest of the works. But that's the sort of idea. If you can see, that's our foyer. You come into church here and you run down that foyer. Sorry, it doesn't go on here, is it? So that's the foyer, okay? And that's the way into church. That it gives us an extended foyer, it gives us toilets and offices, and it gives us a hall or a number of small rooms. We can use partitions to make a hall into a number of small rooms. There's lots of ways of doing that. But that's the basic idea for the extension, that it goes out there. And that's the kind of thing it would look like if you were down on Lawford Road at the bottom of the church path, to the right of the foyer, that's what you'd see roughly. If you were standing where the co-op is and looking towards church, that's the end view of what you'd see of the new thing. Okay? So that's a very brief look at that, but it's just to give you a feel of what may happen as we can afford to. Marion, you got a question? Aaron, if you can get to Marion, that'd be great.
I was just asking about storage in that extension. Is there plenty of space for, have you thought, I mean, probably not at this stage, but you know.
No, we have at this stage, and we've already built into the hall. For example, one of the sketches came out with a hall, and we said, right, the last 1.5 metres of the hall is just cupboard, that user organisations can have storage. There's a chair storage room, all that kind of stuff. So yes, thank you. That's always the key thing. Nicola.
It's back to the first part, the reordering of this worship area. When this starts, how long will it take and where will we go while it's being done?
Can't tell you the answers to both of those yet. The obvious things are there will be some work we can worship on Sundays while it's happening. Otherwise, we'll have to hire a school for Sundays. When we know the scheduling and exactly what contractors require, we'll find ways around it. But I can't tell you yet. But I'm confident we can do it. We just have to be flexible. Yep, Elizabeth. Are we still going to be able to have funerals during that time? It is likely there will be some points at which we are not able to have funerals if we're doing this sort of reordering. So there'll be some weeks when that's not possible, and then if that happens, we'll borrow other churches or use crems or whatever. So, yeah, that's not... I mean, with the heating, for example, all the contractors have agreed that we'll have the building available for us on Sundays, provided we can get it warm. And that's sometimes possible, but not always. Nathan?
Where will the christenings and weddings be held then?
In the normal worship space. Yeah, just in a normal way. You've got disruption while the building's happening, but once it's done, it's as it is. Just comfier. And more beautiful, we hope. Any other queries? We'll get to finance in a moment. Okay, where's the money come from? I'm not going to give you the costings yet because people will remember them and they're not fixed and firm yet. But how do we fund it? House in York Street was sold some years ago. We still have the funds from that, which will provide the start point for the heating and other things, for example. St Matthew's building is being sold, and what comes off that, to be honest, it won't be huge. There'll be a couple of 100,000. We can have it, but we have to satisfy a lot of conditions. So we're working on that at the moment with the church commissioners. We have to do some very substantial things. What's the query? Yeah, there is a buyer going through at the moment, so it's likely to happen. So hopefully the building will not disintegrate any further. Then if we've got offices and things in the new build, we can sell 1A New Street, but clearly we can't do that until we've built. So there's a scheduling issue financially there. And the same with Dixon Hall, which has been a great place, but it's just in the wrong place now, and we can't park cars there. It's a nightmare. But we do have a responsibility, particularly to our sponsored guide troop, that they have somewhere to meet. So we're not going to flog it off before we've got homes for them and things like that sorted. Giving will clearly be a part of it, and one of the easiest way to fund things like these projects, to be honest, is legacies, where a legacy can provide the sort of giving, or it caps off a lifelong of generous giving in ways that can make a substantial difference to this kind of project, whether that's 10% of your estate because you've got people to give it to, or whether you can give more because you don't. So legacies are something I'd ask you to think seriously about, whether that could be part of your participation in this. Hopefully not for many years to come, but I'd be stupid if I didn't raise it. And there's the possibility of grants, particularly on the eco areas, changing the heating and those sorts of things. There are some grants available, but not huge amounts. And no intention of asking for lottery funding for this kind of thing, in case any of you are asking. So, what do we need? Well, first, your prayers. This needs to be, first of all, a church prayer project. And secondly, yes, we do need people. First, to help with maintenance. A number of you do that already, but if you could help with just looking after this building regularly, talk with Alistair, please, and he would love to hear from you. We need people with project management skills, basically to take stuff off my desk so I can get on with being a vicar, not a buildings manager. So if you've got project management skills in building work, then shout. And people to do admin for permissions and for grant applications. And you're going to need to be people who basically can go away and learn to do stuff you've never done before, okay? And just work it out as you go along. So those are the sorts of people we're after for help with. Right, understand that, Nathan. We'll have a chat later then. Thank you. So, that's all I'm intending to say. Questions, comments, the floor is yours. Nathan. Sorry, Aaron, beg your pardon.
You may have mentioned it, sorry. Are there any plans to extend the car park if we're growing capacity loads inside?
We've talked about it, particularly how we could put reinforcing under the grass. So we don't necessarily lose the grass, but we can reinforce it so it can be parked on, but we've got nothing concrete about that, so bad pun, isn't it? But it's a possibility, but I think reinforcing the grass would be a better option. The problem is most of those reinforcing systems require you to dig out first and then replant the grass, so it's not as easy as we thought it might be. I can't see who's there. Oh, sorry, Stuart here. We'll take one at the back, Stuart, then you, sorry. Oh, it's
And-
Eleanor, is it, at the back, hiding?
It's Eleanor.
Yeah.
Do we know how much of the work the sale of York Street and St Matthew's building will cover?
I would be very surprised. I mean, you never know until you get builders' quotes, and it depends on how busy people are and what the building industry is like. But I would expect that to cover all the internal works and not the extension. There may be some left over for the extension. But we will have choices on cost cutting. So, for example, the heating I'm expecting to come in at about 55,000. We've got, what, a couple of 100,000 of the York Street money left, Dave? A little bit more? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then the PA AV system would be about 50. So there's the first 100 gone there, another 100 on the other building works, but that's the guess yet because we don't have the quotes. If we were to do everything in one hit, the architect's first estimate is 1.1 million. But I think that's over the top and we can get it down. Any other queries? Liz? Sorry, can we go with the mic for Liz because I can't hear. Oh, sorry, Stuart, I'll come back to you. Beg your pardon. I'm getting tired. Liz?
I was just wondering why you need planning permission for the notice board, because there was one out there originally.
Yes, I know, and the Highways Act says that we have to have planning permission, and it's in the faculty that we have to provide it.
Okay.
I could put it up without, but I risk us losing 1,100 quid, which the board will cost when they come and tell us to take it down. So we have no choice. Stuart, sorry.
I just want to say, I mean, that's probably obvious. You've got to make these information made generally available in written form,
Yeah.
and then allow people to make further comments.
Yeah, Stuart's saying, are we going to make this available in written form and allow people to make further comments? Yes, I've deliberately not done that until we'd had this conversation because it may have changed things, because I didn't know how people will react. So yes, in the next week or two, there will be some written things, versions of this, and people, you'll be able to talk with members of your PCC. There's a PCC meeting, I think it's 19th of July. Get your comments back to people before that, they'll be taken seriously. There's another one? Debbie.
Can you hear me? Oh, yes, I can now. Thank you. Hello. Just wanted to say this is the most exciting thing that's happened in a long time here. And I just think that, you know, we've got so much to look forward to. And I urge you to pray, and I urge you all to really get behind this now. Because as a community, for a church, I really firmly believe, and I know the PCC do also, that we should be reaching out to our new Bilton community. And this is a really important time to do that, especially post-COVID. And I think we can be an absolute beacon in this community. And I think this is all part of God's amazing plan for us. And our recovery, I suppose, as a church. So I just urge you all to really pray for this. And thank you, Alan. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Alan, especially for really just taking this forward for us. So there's a lot of vision and a lot to be achieved, but I'm sure we'll do it with God. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. That'd be a good note to end on, but I don't want to cut the questions down. Anyone got anything else they want to ask? Feel free. Class dismissed. Thanks for hanging on. This is a conversation, so feel free to come back as you've had a chance to ponder it when we get the written stuff out and be part of helping develop this right.